This video is brought to you by Learn Flutter Code, the learning platform that cares. So let's get started. Have you ever had to change a UI of your app? For example, changing the position of the buttons, and there is this loading that happens. Well, it can get pretty annoying. If you were to have to change it multiple times and get the loading screen as you were to update the Firestore database, for example, yep, you could see that, yikes, it's annoying. However, fret not, I have a solution for you. Well, the Change Notifier proxy provider can help you. Now, let's take a deep dive of what is actually happening in the example app we had earlier. As you can see, we have a Firestore database attached to this app. If we were to change the position of the buttons of the app, we will have our red button on top instead of the purple. Remember this for a later part of this video. Once we changed the positions of the buttons, we will have this loading screen. Yikes! This is because it is sending an update request to the Firestore database. And once it is successful, it will return a message that says, "Hey, it is successful!" Then your app will remove the loading screen. However, if you see correctly, the new top button is supposed to be red, not purple. Well, this is because the app does not store the new position of the app. However, the app will then get updated with the new position and it will look something like this. And the update will be as fast as your internet speed. And apologies if you have slow connection. It will take a while to change the position of the buttons. So how then can we remove this loading and delayed update? Let's get back to the time where our app is loading. Yikes. Let's get back one step backwards, and to solve this problem, we need a place to store the position of the buttons locally in the app first. If we were to change the positions of the buttons, it will store in this local storage, and then it will update the Firestore database after that. And since the local storage has the most updated position, our app does not have a delayed update, which will then looks like the update was successful. In the meantime, once the Firestore is successful, it will update the app. So what is this name of this local storage inside the provider package? Well, if you guessed it, the local storage is called Change Notifier. Alright, so how then we implement this workflow? Well, don't worry, I'm going to go through it. The first thing that we need to learn is this widget that helps reorder the buttons that we see, and it actually exists from the Flutter library, which is called the reorderable list view. The reorderable list view will be built by the initial data from Firestore using a stream provider that lives in the home page widget. This provider will provide a list of buttons to the settings page, which will look something like this. So it starts with getting the user's buttons from the provider.of context. Then we have our reorderable list view, which takes in two primary parameters, onReorder function and a children, which represent a list of widgets. For the onReorder function, it has two arguments, the old indexed and the new index. I'm not going to show the whole code of the onReorder function. What it does, it basically first set the loading screen, and second updates the Firestore database on the updated position of the buttons. So this is the initial app. So now, how are we going to, remove the delayed and loading screen? So the first step is to create a change notifier or our local storage. So the change notifier, let's call it the buttons notifier. And in it, we have an initial list of buttons. Next, we have an update function that takes in the user buttons that's being updated, and it will just override it accordingly. Then we have this getter method to basically get our current button list. And inside our on reorder, you could see there is something different. First, it does not have a loading screen. It has been swapped to updating the change notifier data on the position of the buttons. So once the reorderable list view on reorder has been updated or changed, then we will just, update the data that we have over here. So once we have done updating it, then we will update our Firestore on the position of the buttons. So we have changed the data locally, and we have changed the data in our Firestore. Now, how are we going to update our UI? Well, we are going to use what we are learning today, which is called the Change Notifier Proxy Provider. So the Change Notifier Proxy Provider requires a Change Notifier. Now, we just need to add on the Proxy Provider part of the Change Notifier Proxy Provider. So you better buckle up, there's going to be a lot. So inside the Change Notifier Proxy Provider that we have created over here, it has two data types that are listening. So the first one is the external data type that we are listening initially, which is from the Firestore stream provider. And the second data type that we are listening inside the Change Notifier Proxy Provider is the buttons notifier that we have created earlier over here. Next, in the create params, we will have to pass in the change notifier. This will then update anything that has going on inside the buttons notifier inside our reorderable list view. So if we were to change the button's position inside our change notifier, then it will update accordingly using the update parameters. So let's go through all of these three parameters. So the first one is the build context. The second one is the list of buttons that we are listening to. And then the last one is the buttons notifier or the change notifier that we have created. What this update does is whenever there is an update from the Firestore through the stream provider, so we're listening to the list of buttons from the provider of the stream provider, then it will update our buttons notifier using the update method that we have. So you can see the user buttons over here is from the provider that we have created inside our settings page. So these two dots is called cascade, which basically means we are able to get the update method from our buttons notifier to update our current buttons notifier that we have created inside our change notifier proxy provider. So with this, then we are able to update our reorderable list view, and with that we will just have our onReorder function that we get from our change notifier, and then we also will use the user buttons. Well, if I were to use this in real life, do you think it will work? Well, if your answer is no, you are right. This does not work because user buttons is only getting updates from the stream provider. So we will face a delayed update because we are listening from the stream provider. Therefore, we need to listen not to the stream provider first, but to the change notifier. So then how do we get the latest change notifier from this part of the widget? Well, there is this widget called consumer. So what consumer does is it provides or exposes the latest buttons notifier to us due to the builder method it has. So it has two variables that is being passed. The first one is obviously the build context, and then the second one is the buttons notifier that we got from the buttons notifier data type of the consumer. Now it will pass in the buttons notifier from the change notifier proxy provider into our reorderable list view. Oh my god, there's a lot. So we will get the latest button list not from the stream provider, but from the buttons notifier. So once we are updated from the change notifier or the buttons notifier, then we will get updated from our stream provider with the latest update from the Firestore. So if you have listened earlier inside our update params, if there is any updates through the user button, then it will update the buttons notifier, which will then update through the consumer and into our reorderable list view. So there's a lot of updates, but this will actually help us make our UI of our app looks the most updated without any loading annoying screen. In summary, we learned when to use change notifier proxy provider, how to use it, and using the consumer for our change notifier. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below for more of these provider videos. Comment down below as well which provider concepts or Flutter or Dart concepts you would like me to go through. That's it, stay safe and all the best. Bye bye.